Today what I really want to talk about is reparenting. Why it's so essential for trauma healing. Here's the concept, right? I think I've explained it to you guys before, but I'm going to bring up this particular concept called neuroception. For those of you who are wondering and wanting to get more information about your relationships, why you have particular attachment styles, why you have any of the coping mechanisms that you have, this morning I actually had a beautiful conversation with my own mother, and the two of us were talking about my childhood, and we were talking about our past and how so much of who I am today, the need to prove myself, my lack of self-worth, etc., comes from those areas in my life, comes from that time when I was growing up. And my mom's a psychologist as well, so it's really helpful for us to be able to have these conversations and reflect back and forth. We've both done this healing, so we're able to have honest conversations about how my mom's trauma that she inherited from her family, where she was always trying to prove herself. She really wanted to get an academic degree of a certain sort, and she had so much resentment, she had to give up her career. And so unconsciously, in her mind, there was this, I didn't finish validating myself and achieving my career to the highest of highs. So when we were growing up as children, she unconsciously projected that onto us. And now I am unconsciously projecting that as my own, where I'm trying to prove myself so much, I'm trying to create a name for myself. And it's unhealthy, right? Like for most of us in a relationship, we don't realize that we're bringing so much of our stories from our past. We're bringing so much of our traumas from our previous relationships. And most importantly, we're actually bringing the love we did not get when we were children, when we were little beings. We're actually bringing that same story into our relationships over and over and over again. So what's happening now? If you want to understand your attachment style, you want to understand why you are trying to please your partners, why you abandon yourself, you're trying to understand why you run away from emotions, going back to those younger versions of yourself that didn't get love in the way that you deserved is the answer. Because when you go back there, you're finally able to understand what are your real needs. How many of you out there who are listening today have a problem or have always had this issue with not feeling seen or heard, or wanting to be seen and heard more? How many of you have that concern or problem? There's a huge gap of not feeling seen or heard, and yet we will go into relationship after relationship where we'll keep attracting similar partnerships that don't see us, don't hear us, don't necessarily recognize us and validate us. And so we go through this huge resentment cycle, feeling so frustrated at relationships. Now we beat on ourselves. Anything that exists in a pattern is telling you something. What is the cause of this? What is the wound that's bringing all of this in here? Those are our deep childhood wounds. So neuroception, okay, I'm going to explain to you guys. Neuroception is this neuroscientific principle by which when a baby is born, when a child is really young, they don't have a developed forebrain, the part of your brain that helps you understand relationships and helps you understand what your identity is. So how does a child, as they're growing up, how does a child discover who they are and what their identity is? The way we discovered who we were, what we were worth, was by observing how the world treated us. And based on that, we created an assumption, or we created a standard for, okay, I'm worth this much or not worth this much. It's incredibly important for a child to be able to get love, validation, and support. So let's say you as a little child now, go up to your parent, right? You go up to your mother or your father, and all you want is a hug. All you want is love, a kiss, you want connection. Their own wounds have created a disconnection. So you as a child in that moment, what you receive is disconnection. You receive a lack of love. So if this happens one time, you're like, okay, shit, something must be going on. But if every time you go back, you have an emotionally avoidant parent, every time you're shut down, or you don't get it the way you want it and deserve it, then you now start to think, oh man, I must really not be that valuable if they're not capable, if they're not wanting to come and give me love. Because a child doesn't have that forebrain that creates a rational distinction and knowledge. A baby doesn't fucking understand that. A child doesn't know that. Then don't have that forebrain that's developed enough to create that logical reasoning. Oh shit, then maybe something's wrong with me. This is why when it comes to divorces, parents can do all they want, but children tend to internalize because children see everything only from their perspective. They don't know how to logically understand it and break it down. So they think, oh, what did I do that you and daddy are separating? Nothing. But a child does not understand that. So now I'm coming to the point of reparenting. So now you, me, all of us who've gone through these little things when we were kids, and I was like, oh, but this is normal, right? Like any kid goes through this shit. But now, moving forward, when we get into our dating lives, we have a dysregulated nervous system. We have huge abandonment and rejection wounds because when we were kids and we wanted love, our parents were filled with so much of their own trauma, they weren't able to give it to us. But we internalized it. This is why I would say 90% of the world, including myself, internalizes other people's dysregulation as meaning something about us. Because we're so used to being in environments where if it was high stress, there was a lot of tension, people weren't capable of giving us love. As children, we internalize and make it seem something about us. Which is why when a kid, even if a kid does badly, if a father or a mother is emotionally available for that child, the child's self-worth is higher because it realizes that, okay, you know what, I'm lovable even though I didn't do well. But on the contrary, for most of us, when we didn't do well, we didn't get approval from our parents, we didn't get love or validation from them. Why? Because their own wounds felt shame when we didn't do well. You look at Asian cultures especially, because your society, your parents, your family, they are the ones who internalize those wounds and they project it onto you. Your love should not be dependent on whether you get a C or an A. But the sad truth is, most of our childhoods, that's what happened. Our love was dependent on how well we did, how well we showed up, if we went to church or the mosque or the temple or whatever else that they wanted us to do, if we wore the clothes that they wanted us to wear, if we were like, we lived in that space or approval that they wanted us to. A lot of immigrant cultures are also like that, where the immigrant parent comes to a new country and then they have to survive, right? So they're trying to survive and work really hard. So when a child's born, they're like, no, don't spend money on this. No, you can't go and do this. No, we can't afford to have this and this. So the child automatically inherits scarcity. The child automatically believes they're not valuable enough to have, to want, to exist. Anyway, coming back to this point, when we now take, this is our story of who we fucking become. Imagine taking this whole story and then going into a relationship. You're taking not just the baggage of your own past, you're taking the baggage from your mom and dad's past. You're taking the traumas that they have fucking passed on to you into your relationships. So naturally now, you already have a roadblock with how you're going to connect to your partner. So what's important now is you need to recognize that if you want to have true love, not just an attachment, not just a partner, not just not be alone, if you want to have true love, you have to do the work to release the baggage that you've been carrying for all these fucking decades. I wish there was a better way to be able to give it to you and say, yes, just by imagining that you want love, it'll just fucking come to you. No, up all the reasons why we need to do reparenting. Beautiful Bali. A once in a lifetime opportunity to visit the island of the gods, the spiritual capital of the world, a place which energetically itself visiting allows you to feel like you're letting go and releasing your past and the traumas and the difficulties and the anxieties. I take people on retreats all over the world, and I'm going to be taking only a handful of people. You could be there for 5 nights and 6 days to learn how to reset, to rejuvenate, and to relax, and to let go of all of the anxiety in the past and the stresses that are holding on to you, so you can return back to your life completely rejuvenated. You can bring a whole new, loving, confident, and open you. And when you return, you come back with this nourished sense of self, this fulfilled, powerful version of you that comes with the spirit of Bali, comes with the resetting and the releasing, and comes with the confidence and the strength you've now created. Come join me on this amazing experience. I am so excited. For 5 nights and 6 days in Bali. It's going to be so special, January 23. This is going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I know you don't want to miss it.